We are looking at, ladies and gentlemen, section 4.2, which is congruence and triangles. When two geometric figures are congruent, there's a correspondence between their angles and a correspondence between their sides, such that corresponding angles are congruent and corresponding sides are congruent. If two angles of one triangle are congruent to two angles of another triangle, then the third angle is also congruent. So that's called third angle theorem. So that should go where, guys? Right, you could probably put it in today so that you don't spend all your time putting them in before the quiz. All right, properties of congruent triangles, theorem 4.4. These are your properties. Reflexive property, if triangle ABC is congruent to triangle ABC. Symmetric property, if triangle ABC is congruent to DEF, then DEF is congruent to ABC. And transitive property, if triangle ABC is congruent to DEF and DEF is congruent to JKL, then ABC is congruent to JKL. Okay, you ready? All right, we've got two triangles. We are told that they are congruent to each other. Therefore, all their angles are congruent to each other. But let's be careful. It says triangle ABC is congruent to triangle EFG. So see how it's listed? Those are the angles that are congruent to each other. So A is congruent to E. B is congruent to F. And finally, G and C are congruent to each other. Okay, that's important to realize so that when we solve this, we know which ones are congruent. So the red ones are congruent, B and F are congruent to each other. So I can make 8y minus 9 equal to 22. And then I just solve. I add 9 to both sides. Hold on one second, dude. Add 9 to both sides. And I get, yes, 8y equals 22, 26. 31, thank you. Divide that by my computer. Oh my goodness. Equals 31. Divide by 8. So y equals, this is where you get out your calculator because it's not going to be an even number all the time. It's okay if it's a decimal. 31 divided by 8 gives us 3.875. Dana, did you have a question?
Do you have a mark on the mark?
Yeah, it came off. It should be here. Can I help you, gentlemen, in the back?
No.
Okay, let's move on to B. Let's move on to B. All right, I want to solve for all the x's and y's. So let's talk about what sides or what angles are congruent to each other. Okay, well I want to find, instead of going through and listing all the ones and marking them up, what goes with what, I'm going to look at what I need to find. I need to find angle O. So if I look, it goes L, M, and O. So I'm going to look at the other one, it goes A, B, C, D. So I know D is congruent. Sometimes you can tell from just the picture. Sometimes you go up to where it's congruent and see where they match. So I know 147 equals X. That was easy. Okay, now sides are a little more difficult. Q to P. So I'm looking where Q and P are. So that's the same as F to E. So I know this side right here matches this side right here. Is this making sense? So 30 equals 5y. Divide both sides by 5, and 6 equals y. Do we have any questions about this? No?
So if you're given these two pictures, which ones are congruent?
Yes.
These sides.
And look at the sides that are congruent. So do you see how it says, please stop talking while I'm talking or get out of my class. A, B, C, D, E, F, G is congruent to L, M, N, O, P, QR. And we know that we're looking for side QP. So I go over here and figure out, okay, that's E to F. Does that make sense, Dana? Okay. Let's turn it over, please. Let's look at the back. Okay, let's look at A. All right. I know these two angles are congruent to each other because they're marked. Do I know a third angle that's congruent to it? Which angles? The ones right in the middle. What is that called? Vertical angles. Those are congruent. So I know x must equal 61. And right there I use that third angle sum theorem. If 2 out of the 3 angles are congruent to each other, the third one must be also. Let's not make it complicated. Okay. All right, are we looking at B? Are 2 out of the 3 angles congruent to each other?
Yeah.
Yes. So 66 must equal to x. Divide by 2. 33 must equal x. Pretty straightforward, right? Yeah. Anybody have any questions so far? Let's look at the homework and make sure there's not one that's harder than this. So you might want to open your book to section 4.2 and follow along with me. I'm going to look through here and see if there's anything harder than what we've done. We've got to do 2 through 26 even. 2 is just writing, you'll be fine. 4 is just like example 1 part B. 6, 8, and 10 are the same kind of things. You're just going to figure out what angles or sides are congruent. We talked about that. 12, we've got to figure out if they can be proven to be congruent by triangle, some like third angle theorem. 14, 2. 16, you're just going to solve. It's like the ones we just did. So we should be okay. The interior angles of a triangle add up to what? 180, right? So if you have 2 out of the 3 angles, you can figure out the third one. That 180 minus those 2 angles. 18, same kind of thing. It's a little more complicated because you might have an x and a y, and you've got to figure it out. But I think you can do that. 22 is a challenge problem. I want you to try it. 24, you should be okay. And 26 is our first proof, but it is fill in the blank. So you just have to fill in 3 parts. So I want to see if you guys can do that. It gives you the given. It gives you a statement. You have to figure out what the reason is. It gives you a reason. You have to figure out a statement. It gives you the final statement. You have to figure out the reason. Any questions? All right, if you get stuck on your homework, please come up and ask. But I did go through them all and tell them which examples related to them. So please look at those first. All right, you should get out your what right now?